Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the international webinar event. Okay, first let me introduce myself. I'm Novita and I will host you for today's event. Now let me welcome our special guest for today. Welcome to the honorable first speaker, Mr. Migunani M.Kom, as the head of Information System Department from STEKOM University Indonesia, and the second speaker, Mr. Yigermal Semahegn as Amsalu, as a lecturer at College of Science and Technology from Oromia State University, Ethiopia, and the last speaker, Dr. Atikah Binti Johari, as a senior lecturer faculty of Applied and Human Science from University Malaysia Perlis, and last but not least, also to the honorable guests and audience today. Okay, before we begin, I have a few housekeeping notes here. Today's session is being live streamed on the Universitas Tekom YouTube channel. And for today's event, we will start with our national anthems and continue with the opening speech as a regular obstacle to the university. In the next session, we will begin the main event presentation by our special guest today. And in the next session, we will continue with the Q&A session and take a picture for documentation. And last time is closing. Okay, first we will sing our national anthem. So our operator today, Mr. Abdullah, you can start the session. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Next, we will invite the most responsible person to the stake to conduct this skill international event for given opening speech. Yeah, for Miss Risma Nurhapsari, the time is yours. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Novita. Do you hear me now? I'm sorry, do you hear me, Novita?
Yeah, Miss.
Okay. Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's met guys, scholar and participant from around the world. Uh, Good afternoon and welcome to the Prestige International Webinar event. I stand before you today with great honor and privilege as a representative of STEKOM University instead of our estate rector who due to unforeseen circumstances could not be here with us today. Nevertheless, I assure you that the spirit of the our university and a commitment to the international webinar event remain unwavering. Today we gather her virtual from the across the globe, unit by a common purpose to engage in meaningful dialogue, share knowledge, and foster collaboration on zero trust architecture, rating IT security in perimeter/world. a topic of paramount importance today. Despite the physical distance that Spark used, the digital realm has brought us together in a way that trust can broader. Uh, this is a testament to the power of technology and importance of continuous learning and global connection. I want to thank all the participants, districts and speaker and the organizing commit for your dedication and enthusiasm in making this event a reality. Your presence here demonstrate your commitment to advancing knowledge and addressing our world's challenge. Throughout this webinar, we have the privilege of hearing from the expert and thought leader who will share their insight, experience, and expertise on zero trust, articles rating, IT security, and parameters work. Please actively ask question and engage in discussion to maximize this valuable opportunity. As we continue today's discussion, let us remember that exchange IT and collaboration across project is essential to finding innovation solution to global issue. Let us harness to collective with with some of these diverse audience to drive positive change in our respective field. In closing, I want to reaffirm our commitment to participate and education cooperation and international understanding that bring us together today. Let us honor test participate by active engaging in upcoming sessioning and for giving you connection that will endure beyond the convenience of the virtual event. Thank you for the attention. Without further delay, let us pick the international webinar Zero Trust Access Rating IT Security in Parameterized the World. I'm confident that our shared pursuit of knowledge no paths. Thank you, Miss Novita.
Okay, thank you so much for your contribution, Miss Risma. And then we will go to the next session. Okay, and for our audience, if you have any question for the speaker, please add them to the chat or you can raise your hand, and we will able to answer some of the during the Q&A session after the presentation. And today's session, each presenter will have about around 30 minutes for the time presentation. Now let me welcome our first presenter, Mr. Migunani, as Head of Information System Department from STEKOM University. The time is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miss Novita. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, sure.
Good morning or afternoon, everyone. Let me to introduce myself. I'm Migunani, lecturer from STEKOM University. I'm the head of the Information System Undergraduate Study Program. It is a great honor to be here today as we dive into one of these topics, shaping the future of cybersecurity, zero trust architecture, and how it compels us to rethink IT security in perimeter network. As organizations move to the cloud, adopt a hybrid work environment, and embrace digital transformation, it unprecedented speed. The traditional security model are becoming outdated. The ones clear and well-defined perimeter that surrounded corporate networks no longer exist. This shift leaves us exposed to a myriad of threats, both external and internal, that challenge conventional methods of safeguarding data and infrastructure. Zero trust is not just a buzzword, it is a paradigm shift. It forces us to assume that no entity, whether inside or outside our network, is inherently trustworthy. Instead of assuming trust based on location or network, Zero Trust mandates continuous verification, least privileged access, and constant monitoring to ensure that only the right people, right device, and services have access to the right resource at the right time. Through this presentation, we will explore the principle of zero trust, why traditional perimeter-based defenses no longer suffice, and how adopting this architecture can enhance organization resilience in an increasingly complex threat landscape. We live in an era where the stakes are higher than ever and cybersecurity needs to evolve. I hope today's webinar will provide with a fresh perspective and insight and how to secure environment in a world where the perimeter no longer exists. Thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to engaging informative session. Okay. Okay, in a webinar, Zero Trust Architecture and Rethinking Security in Perimeter-less Works, and explain in my agenda. The first one is introduction, and the second one is what is Zero Trust, and the next is Zero Trust pillars, and the Zero Trust approach, and the end is Zero Trust maturity journey. The trend of remote working is triggering the development of more aggressive cyber threats. As a result, more and more businesses are requiring more modern network security model to protect their organization network. To overcome this challenge, zero trust security become one of the ideal methods that can be done. Its ability to monitor and authenticate all traffic, regardless of its position inside or outside the corporate network, is capable of eliminating various types of cyber threats. Zero Trust security bring advantage that are not only focused on network security. It also simplifies the access process and allow employee to work from a variety of location and variety of devices, improving their productivity and experiences. According to a survey conducted by Cloudflare, 83% of employees found Zero Trust security to be a solution to ensure safe and fast developer access. And 81% said this solution supports the expansion of remote working programs such as Bring Your Own Device. And 71% said that Zero Trust is also more secure than a VPN or virtual private networking and allow them to access application more securely. What is Zero Trust? Zero Trust is a cybersecurity framework that minimizes trust assumption, requiring continuous verification of user and requiring verification of device access to resource. A zero trust architecture or ZTA encompasses the relationship, workflows, access policies necessary for implementing zero trust principles. The shift to zero trust necessary culture. The shift to zero trust necessitated culture change within organization, moving from perimeter-based security to a more granular identity-centric approach. Zero Trust Security is an IT security method that uses strict identity verification for every person and devices that try to access resource and on a network, regardless of their position inside or outside the network perimeter. Zero Trust does not apply the concept of trust. This, this does not make the system easy to trust. Instead, the solution eliminated trust. Simply put, if you want to compare with traditional IT networks that entrust anyone in their internal, Zero Trust Security actually does not trust anyone and anything. This is a Zero Trust pillar. The Zero Trust pillar represents a gradient of implementation across five distinct pillars, in which minor advancement can be made over time forward optimization. The pillar included identity, devices, network application, and workloads, and data. Each pillar includes general detail regarding to the following cross-cutting capability. That is visibility and analytics, automation and orchestration, and governance. How to effectively implement and manage zero trust security. Business need to know a number of zero trust frameworks. Here are some of them. The second one is recognize identity. Zero Trust can know who will access the network, as well as having the recognize the identity of the accessor in detail. In the second one is device verification. Zero Trust is also capable of varying devices and making data access requests to browser and enterprise application, for example. Data protection. Zero Trust can also protect data from unauthorized movement where this solution uses automatic classification method and encryption processes and direct threat detection. And the next is monitor application. Zero Trust can access and configure from the application to ensure security with policies that have been set. In addition, the solution can also monitor the behavior of the application to prevent it from various suspicious links. And the next is infrastructure security. Zero Trust can perform infrastructure setting and configuration in the best way, especially on security. In the next is encryption of internal communication. Finally, Zero Trust will also not miss the device used in the internal network to be trusted easily. This solution will encrypt internal communication and restrict access based on policies and even implement microsegmentation and direct threat detection. In the Zero Trust pillar, this model reflects the seven tenets of Zero Trust. Number one, all data source and computing services are considered resources. All communication is secure regardless of network location. Access to individual enterprises resources is granted and a per session basis. Access to resource is determined by dynamic policy. The enterprise monitor and ensure the integrity and security posture of all owned and associated assets. All resource authentication and authorization are dynamic and strictly enforced before access is allowed. And the next is the enterprise collect much information as possible about the current state of assets, network infrastructure, and communication, and uses it to improve its security posture. Cross-cutting capability across five pillars. This three cross-cutting capability highlight activities to support interoperability of function across five pillars. The number one, visibility and analytics. Visibility refers to the observable artifact that result from the characteristics of an event within enterprise-wide environment. The focus on cyber-related data analysis can help inform policy decisions, facilitate response activities, and build a risk profile to develop proactive security measures before an incident occurs. In the second one is automation and orchestration. Zero Trust makes full use of automated tools and workflow that support security response function across products and services while maintaining oversighting, security, and interaction of the development process for such function, product, and services. In the next is governance. Governance refers to the definition and associated enforcement of agency cybersecurity policy, procedure, processes within and across pillar to manage agency enterprises and mitigate security risk in support of zero trust principles and fulfillment of federal requirements. The zero trust approach. Feasibility informed policy is the one of zero trust approach. Provide as much intelligence and insight as possible to people administering the technology in order to produce informed policies. In the second one, trust is neither binary nor permanent. Continually reassess the posture of our users, devices, and applications and adjust your trust accordingly. Be prepared to respond to events that rise the risk level by containing newly discovered threats and vulnerabilities. In the third is of ownership is not a control. Validate and extend trust to device, application, and network that you don't own or manage from BYOD. Bring your own device and IoT, Internet of Things, device to SaaS and public cloud computing. And the fourth is the perimeter is any place where you make an access control decision. Choose the layer and process point that work for your environment, whether it's on the network layer, the application layer, and the point of identity verification, or during a transaction workflow. The five, access decisions are based on re-establishing trust every time. Membership within a group and application service within a tier or a device connected to a network location are not enough or they are to authorize activity. And the sixth is containment. Combine least privilege and segmentation with response capability to monitor for threat activity and limit its spread by default. And the next is Zero Trust Maturity Journey. The three stages of the Zero Trust Maturity Journey that advance from a traditional starting point to initial, next is advanced, and next is optimal will facilitate CTA implementation. Each subsequent stage requires greater level of protection, greater level of detail and complexity for adoption. In the first one, the traditional starting point. Manually configure life cycle from establishment to decommissioning and assignment of attributes, security and logging, static security policies, and solutions that address one pillar at a time with discrete dependencies on external systems. Least privilege established only as provisioning. Silhouette pillars of policy enforcement, manual response and mitigation deployment, and limited correlation of dependencies, log, and telemetry. In the next maturity journey is initial, starting automation of attribute assignment and configuration of lifecycle, policy decision and enforcement, an initial cross-pillar solution with integration of external systems. Some response change to list privilege after provisioning and aggregated visibility for internal systems. In the next journey is advantage. Wherever applicable, automated control for lifecycle and assignment of configuration and policies with cross-pillar coordination, centralized visibility and identity control, policy enforcement integrated across pillars, respond to predefined mitigation, change to list privilege based on risk and posture assessment, and building towards enterprise-wide awareness, including externally hosted resources. And the maturity journey for the end or optimal, fully automated, just-in-time lifecycle and assignment of attributes to assets and resource that self-report with dynamic policy based on automated or observer triggers, dynamic list privilege access just enough and within threshold for assets and their respective dependencies, enterprise-wide cross-pillar interoperability with continuous monitoring, and centralized visibility with comprehensive situational awareness. This is a journey of maturity, trust, zero trust method. The first one is a traditional. Identify, define, network, application, and workflows and data. This is a component in CTA. In the traditional identify, the first is password or MFA, on-premise identity storage atau stores, limited identity risk assessment, and permanent access with periodic review. And the device, manually tracking device inventory and limited compliance visibility, no device criteria for resource access, manual deployment of threat protection to some devices. And the network, large perimeter or macro segmentation, limited resilience and manually managed rule sets and configuration, and minimal traffic encryption with ad hoc key management. And for application and workloads component, mission critical application accessible via private network, protection have minimal workflow integration, and ad hoc development, testing, and production environment. And from data component, manually inventory and categorize data, on-prem data store, static access control, and minimal encryption of data at rest and in transit with ad hoc key management. In the next journey is initial. For identify, MFA with password, self-managed and hosted identify stores, manual identify, risk assessment, and access expires with automated review. And for devices, all physical assets tracked, limited device-based access control and compliance enforcement, and some protection delivered via automation. And for network, large initial isolation of critical workloads, network capability manage availability demand for more application, and dynamic configuration for some portion of the network, and encrypt more traffic and formalize key management policies. And for application and workload for application in the network, in the initial journey is some mission critical workflow have integrated protection and are accessible over public network to authorized user. Formal code deployment mechanism through CI or CD pipeline, and static and dynamic security testing prior to deployment. In the initial journey is the journey for data. There is a limited automation to inventory data and control access. Begin to implement a strategy for data categorization. Some highly available data store, encrypt data in transit, and initial centralized key management policies. In the next journey is advanced for identity, phishing resistant MFR, consolidation and secure integration of identity store, and automated identity risk assessment for identity, need or session-based access. For device components, most physical and virtual assets are tracked, enforced, compliant, implemented with integrated threat protection, and initial resource access depend on device posture. And for network, expanded isolation and resilience mechanism, configuration adapt based on automated risk-aware application profile assessment and encrypt applicable network traffic and manage issuance and rotation of key. And for application and workload, as the journey advance, most mission critical application available over public network to authorized user and protection integrated in all application workflows with context-based access control. And the next is coordinate team for development, security, and operation. And for data, in the advanced journey, automated data inventory with tracking, consistent, tiered, targeted categorization, and labeling, redundant, highly available data store, static DLP, automated context-based access, encrypt data at rest. And the next is optimal journey for this method. For identity type, continuous validation and risk analysis for identity, enterprise-wide identity integration, and tailor as needed automated access. And for device, in the optimal condition, is continuous physical and virtual asset analysis, including automated supply chain, risk management, and integrated threat protection. And resource access depends on real-time device risk analytics. And for network, distributed microperimeter with just-in-time and just-enough access control and proportionate resilience. Configuration evolves to meet application profile needs and integrated best practices for cryptographic agility. And for application and workloads of data application available over public network with continuously authorized access, protection against sophisticated attacks in all workflow, and immutable workload with security testing integrated throughout lifecycle. And for data, continuous data inventorying, automated data categorization and labeling enterprise-wide, optimized data available, DLP exfil blocking, and dynamic access control, and encrypt data in use. Thank you, Ms. Novita.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Mr. Migunani. And then we will go to the second speaker, Mr. Yigermal, Semahegn Amsalu. Yeah, for Mr. Yigermal. Yeah, the time is yours. Thank you.
Are you? You are sharing Firefox. Stop sharing. ገብቻለሁ በዚህ ነው እዚህ ጋር እስኪ አሁን ወደዚህ ያላት ሚቲንግ አይዲ ከዛ ፓስወርድ join okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello. All right. Good morning for men and gentlemen. So today I'm come up to the presentation slide for the zero trust architecture rethinking IT security in parameterless world. Therefore, I have some slide contents that is which have an introduction, understanding zero trust, a paradigm shift in security, key components of zero trust architecture, zero trust in perimeterless world, implementing zero trust best practice and challenges, zero trust and regulatory compliance, future of IT security with zero trust. Finally, the slide have the conclusion part. Have you hear me? Is it audible? All right.
Yes, sir.
All right. Therefore, when I'm going to the introduction part, zero trust is a strategic approach for in the cyber security that secures organization by eliminating implicit trust and continuously validating every stage of the digital interaction. Finally, the zero trust have the principle of never trust, always verify. So zero trust is designed to protect the modern environments and enable digital transformation by using strong authentication methods. When we have to applyingly leveraging network segmentation, preventing lateral movement of providing the layer 7 threat prevention and simplifying the granular or least access policies. So zero trust was created based on the realization that traditional security models operate on the outdated assumption that everything inside an organization's network should be implicitly trusted. So when we have to implicitly trust once on the network, users, including threat actors and malicious insiders, are free to move laterally. Due to this, the access exfiltrate the sensitive data within the lack of granular security controls. So, meanwhile, we have to do this with digital transformation accelerating in the form of a growing hybrid workforce, continued migration to the cloud, and transformation of security operations, taking a zero trust approach has never been more critical. So, a zero trust architecture results in higher overall levels of security, but also when you have to apply zero trust architecture, the result should have to become up to the reduced security complexity and operational overhead. We have some steps from step 0, the visibility and critical asset identification. In zero trust architecture, one of the first steps is identification of the network's most critical and valuable data, assets, application, and services. So identifying the visibility and critical assets help us to prioritize where to start and also enables the creation of zero trust security policies. By identifying the most critical assets, organizations can focus or focus on the efforts to prioritize and protecting those assets as part of their zero trust journey. Therefore, building zero trust enterprise is very essential. So, zero trust is typically associated with securing users such as network access, trust architecture. A comprehensive zero trust approach encompasses users, applications, and infrastructure. When we are come up to the users, step 1 in any user trust effort requires strong authentication of user identity, application of the least access policies, and verification of the user device integrity. Applications, applying zero trust to applications removes implicit trust with various components of applications when the applications start to integrate and to start to talk to each other. Fundamental concept of zero trust is that application cannot be trusted, and continuous monitoring at runtime is very crucial and necessary. The other part is understanding zero trust, a paradigm shift in security. Key principles of zero trust are the following one: verify every user. So when we have to verify every user, zero trust mandates that every user, whether inside or outside the network, undergoes strict authentication and authorization process. The second key principle is least privilege access. Users are granted the minimum level of access required to perform their task, reducing the attack surface and limiting the potential damage brick area. The third key principle for zero trust is micro-segmentation. Micro-segmentation means to segment a network or implemented a granular level of network, or dividing the network into smaller zones to contain breaches and prevent lateral movement by attackers. After I have to see the key principle of zero trust, let me pass to the implementing zero trust. So when you have to implement zero trust in the organization, implementing zero trust architecture requires comprehensive strategy that encompasses people, process, and technology. When you have to apply this, the first one is identify and access management level. So in identifying and access management, this is a robust solution forms the foundation of zero trust architecture by providing centralized authentication, authorization, identity, lifecycle management. The second, network segmentation that I have to replay from the previous slide. Implementing micro segmentation using firewall, VLANs, software-designed networks, partition the network and restrict the lateral movement. finally, endpoint security. Endpoint detection response solutions play a crucial role in the monitoring and securing devices, providing visibility into endpoint activities and detecting malicious behavior. So by applying this, we have to have the benefits of zero trust. The critical benefit for zero trust architecture to enhance the security posture by eliminating implicit trust and adopting by a principle of never trust, always verify approach. Zero trust minimizes the risk of data breaches and unauthorized access. The second one, reduced attack surface. This means micro-segmentation and least privileged access reduce the attack surface, limiting the impact of potential security breaches and preventing lateral movement by attackers. The third benefit is compliance and regulatory alignment. So zero trust framework aligns various regulatory requirements and industry standards to ensure organizations remain to comply with data protection and regulations. When we have to see the key components of zero trust architecture, to implement a zero trust architecture strategy effectively, the organization must understand the key component of that make up the zero trust architecture. Actually, the components work together, continuously improve upon a comprehensive security model that align with zero trust principles. So the zero trust principles that we have to see in the from the next slide, one is identity and access management. Here, identity and access management form the foundation of zero trust architecture by providing robust user authentication and coarse-grained access control mechanisms. It also includes actually technologies such as single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, identity governance, and management solutions are very important from this policy. So identity and access management provide a high level of authentication assurance and important contexts that are integral to making zero trust authentication and during decisions. At the same time, zero trust architecture is a security model in which access to applications and resources is granted on per user, per device, and per session basis. This helps to protect organizations from unauthorized access, even if a user's credentials are compromised. So the second principle, secure access service edge. Secure access service edge is a new approach to network security that virtualizes, combines, distributes networking and security functions into a single cloud-based services. So secure access service edge provides secure access to applications and resource regardless of the user's location. The third one is data loss prevention. Data loss prevention technology can help organizations protect sensitive data from the unauthorized disclosure. So data loss prevention is a solution to monitor and control data in motion or at rest. This helps organizations to define and enforce policies that prevent data related to security events, helping to ensure that sensitive information remains to protected through the network. Securing information and event management. Security information and event management is a solution to collect, aggregate, and analyze security event logs from various sources across an organization infrastructure. So we can use the data to detect security incidents, facilitate incident response, and provide insights into potential threats and vulnerabilities. Then enterprise resource ownership catalog. This opens a proper grant access to enterprise resource. An organization must have a reliable system that catalogs these resources and, importantly, who owns them. This source of truth needs to provide workflows that facilitate access requests, the associated approval decisions, and regular attestations must be conducted. In time, the source of the truth will contain the answer to who can access what within the organization. Such kinds of questions should have to be answered. We can use the answers both authorization and audit and compliance also. Unified endpoint management. In addition to strongly authenticating the user, zero trust architecture must also consider the posture, the state of the user's device to assess whether corporate data and resources are secure. A unified endpoint management platform provides the following capabilities. One is device provisioning, ongoing configuration and patch management, security, baseline, telemetry, reporting, device cleansing, and retirement. Policy-based enforcement points. In zero trust architecture, access to each resource should be explicitly authorized by gating policy-based enforcement point. Zero trust in permissionless world. So here, in the evolving landscape of cybersecurity, in traditional security models are proving inadequate in the face of sophisticated threats. So the rise of remote work, cloud computing, interconnected ecosystems has blurred the boundaries of the traditional network perimeter. In response to these challenges, a paradigm shift known as zero trust security has emerged, advocating for fundamental different approach to securing digital environments. Therefore, zero trust implementation involves a policy of never trusting and always verifying the authenticity and privileges of devices and users, no matter where they are in the network. Implementing zero trust hinges on the network access control system and the segmentation of your network according to the areas that we have to need to protect. So after we have to do this, we have some challenges when we have to apply the zero trust architecture principles. Challenges in implementing zero trust, knowing how to implement zero trust security requires an understanding of the most common obstacles that we have to encounter. These include complex infrastructures. The second one is cost. Third is effort. Then the need for flexible software solutions are the challenges that I have to listed from this slide. So when we have to say complex infrastructure, for many organizations, their infrastructure consists of many servers, proxies, database, internal applications, and software as a service solutions. Some of these may be running in the cloud, while others are on the premises. Securing each segment of your the network, as well as meeting the needs of a cloud on the premises environment, can raise a number of obstacles. So the third challenge is cost and effort. To implement zero trust, we may need to invest time as well as human and financial resources. Figuring out of these challenges, segment our network and who should be allowed to access to which areas requires careful through and collaboration. Then we have to ascertain the best ways to verify the legitimacy of each user and device before that we have to get granted to access. The last challenge will be flexible software. One of the primary challenge that we have to consider as we have to investigate how to operate a zero trust network is the flexibility of the software to run the system. So we may have to incorporate several micro-segmentation tools, identity-aware proxies, and software-defined perimeter tools are very important for this challenge. Then we'll have to see for 5 steps to zero trust implementation. The following zero trust guidelines can help organizations to design and deploy the zero trust cybersecurity framework. This helps to establish dependable data loss prevention and breach avoidance strategy. What we have to follow is a practical guide to zero trust implementation. One is define the attack surface, architecture zero trust network, monitor our network. These are the practical guide to implement the zero trust implementation. So when you have to see one by one, when you have to define the attack surface, defining the attack surface should be the first item that we have to identify during the implementation of zero trust architecture in our organization. So today, to do this, you want to hone in the areas you need to protect. This opens anyway. You will not be overwhelmed with implementing policies and deploying tools across the entire network. So it is important to see the most valuable digital assets in the organization. The four areas that are importantly to visualize risk of attack are sensitive data, critical applications, physical assets, and corporate services. The second one is implement controls around the network traffic. The way the traffic flows through our network will, sorry, will often a pivot on the dependencies each system uses. Example, many systems need to access a database holding customer, product, or service information. So requests therefore do not simply go into the system. Rather, they have to be routed through a database containing sensitive and delicate information and architecture. By understanding this, we will have to see the details that help us to decide which network control to implement and where we have to position them. The third one is the architecture of a zero trust network. Zero trust network is designed around our specific areas of the network to protect surface. There is never one size first all solution. In most situations, our architecture may begin with the next generation firewall, which can act as a tool for segmenting an area of our network. Also, at the same point, we will want to implement multi-factor authentication to ensure users are thoroughly vetted before being granted to access. The last, create zero trust policy. After we have to implement architecture of the network, the zero trust network, we will want to design our trust policies. This is the most effectively done using what is known as Kipling method. This involves asking who, what, when, where, why, and how for every user, device, network that wants to gain access. When you have to apply these questions, we'll have to get the correct answer to create a zero trust policy in the somewhere organizations. Monitor our network. Monitoring our network is a very important activity on our network, can alert us to potential issues sooner and provide valuable insight for optimizing the network performance without compromising security. Using reporters, we'll have to use reporters when we have to attempt monitor our network, reporters, analytics, and logs will be one of the activities that we have to conduct. So zero trust and regulatory compliance. The compliance and zero trust security are two fundamental principles in cybersecurity that significantly enhance organizational security. Compliance focus on the adherence to regulatory standards and laws, mitigate the risk of data breaches and penalties associated with the non-compliance. On the other hand, zero trust security operates on the never trust, always verify principle, eliminating trust from organization's network architecture. So implementing these principles offers numerous benefits for the organization. So zero trust security adds an extra layer of protection assumption. No user system is trustworthy regardless of their location as well as the usage network. Building blocks of the compliance and zero trust security. So zero trust security serves as the bedrock of the robust cybersecurity framework. Compliance is key component, ensure adherence to regulatory standards, thereby reducing legal risk and enhancing corporate reputations. Therefore, the integration aligns with the principle discussed in unveiling the concept of compliance and zero trust security, establishing holistic approach to cybersecurity, balance regulatory requirements with proactive treatment and mitigation should have to be conducted. So the backbone of compliance are preventive controls, applying preventive controls such as access controls, encryption, proactively deter potential threats. The second one is detective controls, including intrusion detection system and regular audits, identify and respond to security incidents. The third one is corrective controls like backup and recovery procedures, restore systems to post-security incidents. Best practices for ensuring compliance and zero trust security. To ensure compliance and zero trust security, a proactive approach is very essential. Begin by conducting comprehensive risk assessment to identify vulnerabilities and align security measures with regulatory requirements. So the key practices that we have to include are continuous compliance monitoring, implement real-time tracking tools to promptly address compliance gaps, automated audit. Automated audit minimizes human error and ensure regularly lists privilege access, grant users minimal access necessary for their roles. With regular privilege reviews and updates should have to be incorporated. Multi-factor authentication also essential, and it adds extra layer security to verify authorized access. The last is micro-segmentation, divide the network into secure zones to limit the data movement. Finally, future of IT security with zero trust. In the dynamic realm, cybersecurity, the future of zero trusts unfold with promises and challenges. In the part of zero trust series, we explore the insights from the industry experts, that intersection of trust and security and chart course of the evolving landscape of the digital defense should be incorporated. What does the future of zero trust look like? In the evolving of cybersecurity landscape, sorry, zero trust architecture has emerged as a guiding light for organizations seeking to fortify their defensive against modern threats. As we peer into the future of zero trust, the following insights offer clear perspective on what lays are go ahead. One is continuous evaluation. So in the continuous evaluation, future of zero trust is not an overnight revolution, but a gradual evolution. It requires fundamental shift in how we approach risk management. Traditionally, organizations trusted specific resources implicitly, but the future demands that nothing is inherently trusted. Second, the role of cloud and emerging technologies. Cloud-based security solutions are destined to play a pivotal role in zero trust deployment. So they offer scalability and flexibility, adapting to ever-changing needs of organizations. The rise of artificial intelligence also, machine learning, will enhance the effectiveness of zero trust by swiftly and accurately identifying and responding to threats. When we are coming to the conclusion, zero trust is a security philosophy that removes implicit trust from an organization's security model. In zero trust, the identities of all users, device, and applicants, applications, and verified and authenticated before the entities are given access to any part of organization's IT infrastructure. Using network parameters are an organization's primary point of defense that have been effective security approach for some time and increase the remote work during the pandemic loss. It's nearly obsolete. I have finished my presentation slide. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, Dr. Yigermal. And for all participants, if you have any question for the speaker, please add them to the chat or you can raise your hand. Yeah, for first question, we will go to Mr. Migunani first. For Mr. Migun, you still with us?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we have four questions here from students.
Okay.
Yeah, for first question, what are the core principles of zero trust architecture and how do they differ from traditional perimeter-based security model? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Novita. Core principle of Zero Trust Architecture or CTA. Okay. Okay. Core principle of Zero Trust Architecture or CTA difference with multi-factor authentication. It is a traditional method called MFE. In traditional model called multi-factor authentication, MFE is a security mechanism that requires user to provide multiple forms of verification to prove their identity before gaining access to a system or resource. This process strengthens security by making it significantly more difficult for attacker to gain unauthorized access using compromised credential alone. In the new model, zero trust architecture. Zero trust architecture security is an IT security method that uses strict identity verification for every person and device that tries to access resource on the network, regardless of their position inside or outside the network perimeter. Zero, zero trust does not apply the concept of trust. This does not make the system easy to trust. Instead, this solution eliminates trust. Simplify put, if you want to compare with traditional IT network that entrust anyone in their internal, zero trust security actually does not trust anyone and anything. And the principle of zero trust architecture, the first one is never trust, always verify. CTI operates under the assumption that no user, no device, or entity should be trusted by default, whether inside or outside the network. Every access request must be authenticated, authorized, and continuously validated. In a traditional security model, differences is often trust user or device once they were inside the network perimeter. After logging in, for example, assuming internal entity were trustworthy. In the second principle is least privileged access. User, device, and application are granted the minimum level of access required to perform their tasks and no more. This minimizes the potential for damage in case of a breach. Differences with a traditional model in perimeter-based security, user inside the network could often access broader resources, assuming they were inherently trusted after initial authentication, like a login. In the next principle is microsegmentation. The network is divided into smaller zones, each with our security policies and control. This limits an attacker ability to move literally within the network in the event of compromise. In a traditional model, typically focus on securing the perimeter of the network without dividing internal resources into isolated segments. And the next principle of CTA is continuous monitoring and validation. ZTA requires continuous monitoring of user behaviors, device health, and network activity. Security policy are enforced dynamically based on real-time condition and risk assessment. Differences with traditional model is perimeter-based model often relate on one-time authentication only, such as logging in with less emphasis on ongoing monitoring and validation after access was granted. In the next is device and user identity verification. Zero Trust mandates strong identity and device verification mechanism. For example, multi-factor authentication, device postures check. The identity of every entity must be proven before granting access, and device health is constantly assessed. The differences with traditional security. Security model focus more on network-based authentication, less on the identity and integrity of device once inside the network. Next is context-aware access. Access decisions are based on context, such as user location, device health, time of accesses, and sensitivity of the data or resource being requested. This adaptive dynamic approach ensures only legitimate access is granted. In the traditional model, typically didn't take into account this contextual factor, often allowing access based solely on user credential or IP addresses. And the next is automation and orchestration. Zero Trust use automation to enforce policies, detect anomalies, and respond to threats in real time. Automation ensures that security controls are consistently applied across all environments. Different with traditional security, often rely on manual process, making them slower to detect and respond to threats, particularly in complex and distributed environments. And the next is data-centric security. In ZTA, security revolves around protecting sensitive data directly, regardless of where it resides, on premises, cloud, or on hybrid environment. Access to data is strictly controlled, encrypted, and monitored. Different with a traditional model, perimeter-based model often focus more on protecting network boundary and endpoint, with less emphasis on securing data. It moves across different environments. This is my answer for question, Ms. Novita. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then we will go to the Mr. Yigermal for first question. Yeah, for first question, in what way does zero trust architecture improve the detection and mitigation of insider threat compared to traditional security approach? Thank you.
Sorry, would you repeat again once?
In in what way does zero trust architecture improve the detection and mitigation of insider threat compared to traditional security approach? The question
Okay,
already read in the Zoom chat also. Thank you.
okay, okay, okay. Baga. Okay. Baga. All right. In my opinion, the organization will have to apply zero trust architecture in order to enhance the organization's security. One is the organization should have to be implement controls around the network traffic. Second is create a zero trust policy by define the attack surface. The second by architect zero trust network. The third one is monitor the organization's network. So when we have to define the attack surface, organizations should be the first job or task should be identify zero trust checklist. Second is the organization to have areas to protect. This way, the organization will become overwhelmed with implementing policies, deploying tools across the entire network. When the organizations do the attack surface identification, organizations will emphasize the following four areas. One is to identify the areas that are very sensitive attack types like sensitive data, critical applications, physical assets. Corporate servers should have to be identified by the data center security policy in the organization. Second, the organization should have to implement controls around the network traffic. So when the organization attempts to implement the controls around the network, the traffic flow through the organizational network will pivot dependencies. Therefore, these simply go into the system rather than have to be routed through a database containing sensitive and delicate information and architecture. Understanding these, the kinds of details will help the organization to decide which network controls to implement and where they position to them. The third is the organization should have to have a zero trust architecture network. Here, a zero trust network architecture is to design around our specific protect to surface, never one size fits all solution. Here, in most situations, the architecture may be a next generation firewall, which can act as a tool for segmenting an area of the organization network, and also to implement multi-factor authentication to ensure users are vetted before being granted to access. The last, the organizations need to be create zero trust policy. After the organization creates a zero trust policy, the architecture of the network will want to design the trust policies. This is the most effective than using what is known as the Kipling method that I have to presented in before. This involves asking who, what, when, where, why, and how for every user, device, and network that wants to gain access. Therefore, in my opinion, these four key principles are very important to implement the zero trust architecture in the organization. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for answering. And then we will go to the second question for Mr. Migunani. Yeah. Can you explain how zero trust architecture address modern challenge like cloud computing and remote work? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Novita. Can you explain how zero trust architecture addresses modern challenges like cloud computing and remote work? In zero trust architecture is well suited to addressing modern challenges like cloud computing and remote work because it offers a flexible, adaptive security model that is dependent on a traditional network perimeter. And here is how to specifically tackle this challenge. In a cloud computing, cloud environment fundamentally change how organizations operate as they involve distributing data, distributing application and services across multiple platforms. Traditional perimeter-based security model struggle to protect assets in the cloud because there is no single network boundary to defend. Zero Trust offers several advantages in cloud environment is the first one, perimeter-less security model. In the cloud, there is no clear perimeter, and resources are spread across various public, private, and hybrid cloud environment. Zero Trust is designed to operate in a perimeter-less environment by focusing on securing individual assets like a data, application, and users, rather than the network boundary. And the next is a dynamic access control. In a cloud environment, resource can scale up or down dynamically, and Zero Trust uses adaptive access control mechanism that evaluate user and device contact in real time. For example, user can be granted temporary access to specific cloud resources based on their role, based on the location, and based on the device posture. And the next is micro-segmentation of cloud resources. With Zero Trust, cloud environment can be segmented into smaller, isolated zones, limiting access to specific services and reducing the risk of lateral movement if an attacker breaches one section of the cloud. This ensures that even if one area is compromised, it doesn't affect other cloud resources. And security multi-cloud and hybrid development or deployment. Zero Trust provides a unified security framework that can be applied across multiple cloud providers and hybrid environment. It is ensure consistent security policies are enforced no matter where the data or application are hosted, wherever, on premises or in the cloud. On the remote network has become more common, especially in the wake of global shift toward distributed workforces. Traditional security model relied on employee being physically present in an office or environment office where they could be protected by corporate firewall and centralized security tool. In Zero Trust addresses the challenge of remote work in the following ways. The first one is secure access from any location. Remote worker connect from various locations like home, working space, or while traveling, often using personal devices. Zero Trust ensure that access to corporate resource is granted based on continuous identity verification and device security check, not just network location only. This allows employee to securely access resource from anywhere without the need for VPNs or legacy network boundaries. And the second one is continuous authentication and monitoring. In a remote work environment, user behavior can be monitored in real time using zero trust principle. This includes verifying credentials through multi-factor authentication of MFA, accessing device health, for example, checking if the device has up-to-date security patches, and detecting any anomaly in user behaviors, such as accessing system in unusual time or from unexpected location. And the next is last privilege access for remote user. Zero Trust ensure remote workers only have access to the resource they need to do their jobs and nothing more. This minimizes to attack surface by enforcing strict access control, even when employees are working from unmanaged or less secure environment. And the next is a secure collaboration tool. As remote work often involves the use of cloud-based collaboration tools, for example, is file sharing, video conferencing, and all. Zero Trust help secure this interaction by encrypting data and ensuring that access to sensitive file and communication is controlled and monitored. This is for answer in the second question, Mr. Miss, Miss
Yeah,
Novita. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you so much for Mr. Migun, and we we continue with the three. And last question for Mr. Migunani. We have our third question. What role do identity I'm sorry, what role do identity and access management system play in implementing a zero trust model? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Novita. Uh, Access management, IAM. IAM is a identity and access management system play a crucial role in the implementation of zero trust model, as identity verification and access control are at the heart of zero trust security principle. In a zero trust environment, access is determined not by network location, but by continuous verification of user, device, and other behaviors. IAM system enable the key processes that support these principles. Here is breakdown of how IAM system contribute to a zero trust model. In essence, IAM system provide the core foundation for identity verification, access management, and continuous monitoring in a zero trust architecture. They centralize identity management and access control. They enforce multi-factor and adaptive authentication to verify user and device identities. They implement least privilege principes via role-based or attributed-based access, and they continuously monitor use behavior and provide real-time detection of threats. And the next is they ensure the access is secure, dynamic, and responsive to change in context, like contact for location, like contact for device, and contact for health. Through this function, IAM system enable organization to adapt and enforce the core principle of zero trust. The principle is never trust, always verify, and least privilege access. Okay, thank you, Ms.
Okay, thank
Novita.
you. Yeah, and then the last question. How can organization transition from a legacy security model to zero trust without disrupting their operation? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Transitioning from a legacy security model to zero trust architecture require careful planning, phase implementation, and focus on minimizing disruption to ongoing operation. Since many organizations rely on legacy system and security model, a gradual and strategic transition to zero trust is essential to maintain business continuity while enhancing security. Transitioning to zero trust from a legacy security model is gradual, methodical process that focus on improving security without overwhelming the organization. By starting with core area like identity and access management, continuous monitoring, and micro segmentation, organization can incrementally adopt zero trust principle while maintaining business continuity. The key successful is a planning, automation, and effective communication with stakeholder and employee to ensure smooth adoption and minimize operation disruption. Here is a step and best practice to help organization make this green transition smoothly. The number one is conduct an initial assessment, like evaluate the current security landscape, identify high-risk areas, and assess business need and impact. And second is define a zero trust roadmap, like set clear objective, phase approach, and choose pilot project. And the next is strengthen identity and access management, IAM, like implement multi-factor authentication or MFA in the traditional model, establish least privilege access, and the next is leverage adaptive authentication. And the number four is enhance visibility and monitoring, like centralized logging and monitoring, deploy endpoint detection and response, and use network traffic analysis or NTA. And the next is implement micro segmentation gradually, like a segmentation at a key point, segment based on risk, and use software-defined perimeter or SDP. And the next is ada legacy system and application, like integrated with existing infrastructure, use virtualized and containerized solution. And the next is automated security policy, like uses policy engines and deploy automation for incident response. And the next, communicate and train employee, change management and user education for this stack or for this stage. And the next is continuously improve and evolve, like iterative improvement and regular audit and access review for the network. And the next is maintain business continuity. In the balance security with usability. Throughout the transition, it's important to balance security need with operation efficiency. Implement zero trust gradually in a way that minimize user friction and avoid disrupting critical business function. Use automated and adaptive security tool to ensure the legitimate user experience, minimal delays or interruption. Okay, Mr. Novita, this is my answer on the last question.
Okay, thank you for answering, Mr. Migunani. I think it's very clear answer from Professora, and we will go to Mr. Yigermal. And for third question, can you provide real-world example of company or institution that have successful implement zero trust and what benefit they experience? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Therefore, the best example that I have to provide zero trust architecture will be implemented, especially in my opinion, is it is dedicated to the Department of Defense will be one crucial user of the zero trust architecture. So the zero trust architecture will be implemented in the Department of Defense. The organization will have a critical advantage by building block of compliance and zero trust security. Therefore, zero trust security serve as the bedrock of a robust cybersecurity framework. This ensures that adheres to regulatory standards, reducing legal risks and enhancing corporate reputations, and also encompasses policy creation, risk assessment, training, auditing, and continuous improvement will be one critical advantage for the organization. So zero trust security will be operated in the never trust, always verify principle. This is my second question answer.
Okay, thank you for answering. And then the last question, how does zero trust architecture align with regulatory compliance requirement such as GDPR or HIPAA? Thank you.
Okay. All right. Therefore, when we are coming my last question, how does zero trust architecture align with regulatory compliance requirements? So the zero trust requirement will be aligned if the following key practices are included or adopted. One is continuous compliance monitoring. This means implementing real-time tracking tool, applying real-time tracking tool to promptly address compliance gaps. By applying automated audits, this means minimizing human error and ensure regularity. The third one is least privilege access. That means grant users minimal access necessary for their roles with regular privilege reviews, and the reviews privilege reviews should have to be updated daily. The third one should be multi-factor authentication. So the zero trust architecture will be aligned if we have to apply the fourth practice, that is multi-factor authentication. This add an extra layer of security to verify authorized access. The last will be by applying micro-segmentation. That means divide the network into secure zones that to limit the movement of the data. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for answering. I think it's very clear answer from Professor. Yeah, before we close this event, for participant, please open your camera. I will take a picture on the count of three. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, another one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your cooperation. Finally, we come to the end of webinar today. We would like to thank you for all the speaker for the wonderful information and sharing your knowledge. We hope this information will be beneficial for our participants. At least we hope to have more collaboration in the future. The webinar for today and here. We hope to see you soon. Thank you and have a nice day. Goodbye.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Novita, audience.